What is going on, Panther Lair? We are going to talk about the Pittsburgh Panthers victory over the Murray State Racers this past Friday. Now, what I want to do is take a look at the ball screen defense that Pitt ran against Murray State in the first half, take a look at the second half, talk about adjustments and why in the first half it didn't go so well, and in the second half they did a much better job with it. So we're going to dive into 4 possessions here, 2 from the first half, 2 from the second half. So we're going to let this play out. And when we get to the point of a ball screen involving Brandon Cummings and Guillermo Diaz-Graham, now the thing you may have noticed in the first half that the Pittsburgh Panthers did is they consistently weaked ball screens. What that means is they were trying to keep the ball in the left hand of the player using the ball screen, and they did this by flaring out on the right side, almost in an ice formation in order to do that. So their strategy was, hey, let's keep the ball in the left hand of the ball handler. And on top of that too, there's some directional force as well, right? If you're forcing him to go to his left side, essentially you're forcing the ball to be on that part of the floor, and you can kind of load up on the weak side here. So this is a very common tactic, defensive strategy that teams have used at all levels. So they're weakening those ball screens. But if you see what the result is, and I think we all saw it here on Friday, was that the sink rate of the big involved in the ball screen defense, while that did mirror the player on Murray State, the problem is the Murray State player just drove into that sink and eventually was able to get layups. So one of the things that makes ice difficult is essentially you are conceding downhill penetration, and Pitt does not have a lot of rim protection currently, so those are kind of bad things. So I don't know if this is something they'll consistently do, and they did adjust this obviously after the first half, but you'll see that's essentially what happens. They just drive behind the sink rate. So here we see again, this one is going to involve Cam Corrin. We're going to get to the point where we see again a ball screen. And again, you'll see this is intentional here. So this is already trying to weak what is going on. Cummings is going to be on this side. The ball screen is going to come up. He's going to continue to use directional force him here. Now Cam in a much better position here to kind of meet the ball handler here. But as Corrin has shown a pretty big footprint of being indecisive quite a bit in his ball screen coverage, and at some point we'll probably talk about that. Again, the ball handler just drives into the space that's going to be vacated here by Corrin and makes a floater. Now, in the second half, one of the things they adjusted to is instead of trying to use directional force, they just stepped over the screen, fought over the screen, and just met the ball handler at the point of attack. So that's something that I think Pitt does a better job of in general. It doesn't really put the big in as much of a decision-making stressful position if the ball handler, or if this ball handler's defender is able to get back in front here. You're going to see Dunn just steps across. Contest. I do want to point out something real quick because I thought this was really nice movement here. So as the ball goes into the big, how both Leggett steps over here and like a stunt and recover, and then Austin steps into the lane as the low man. So they did this in unison. Really good job. Obviously, we know Austin had a really good game defensively. Comes up with a steal here. Now this one's a little bit more pronounced. Again, we are halfway through the second half. We're going to see another ball screen. Austin is just going to step right over this. And I really like how Guillermo is much more in a drop position here. I mean, this is a guy driving left. Instead of trying to hedge and recover or try to meet him at the level here or meet him at the three-point line, which has been a little bit of a problem because how much Guillermo has conceded dribble penetration, he just kind of steps out, but then again, sinks at the rate. Austin not being screened. That's really helpful here. Puts a lot less stress on the defense. And this possession ultimately ends up as a bunch of nothing. So here, again, really like how Guillermo leaves room for Leggett to navigate. That's very important, but also isn't trying to be so up the touch here that if this ball handler receives this and turns the corner, he's going to get blown by. That doesn't happen. Leaves a very good amount of space here. Leggett does a good job not getting screened. And of course, when he gets back over, this just turns into a difficult step back jumper. So again, I think Pitt did a really good job in the first half in terms of executing what looked to be the plan. Weak the ball screens, keep the ball in the left hand of the ball handler as they come out of screens. But in the second half, they realize, hey, this isn't working. We're just conceding consistent penetration to these guards. They're making plays off their left hand. And so instead, they just fought over the screens, and there was far less dribble penetration. And I think Pitt did a really nice job of this in the second half. It's one of the reasons they started to pull away slowly, albeit surely, despite the fact that I think a lot of that was free throws throws too. So, hey, this contributed. Didn't give Murray State a bunch of looks at the rim. I think Pitt did a good job adjusting. They don't always do that, especially in game. So, good job on them. I don't expect them to weak a lot of ball screens going forward here. If Murray State's able to do this, I'm pretty sure other teams are going to be able to do this as well.